Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining again. Tonight I've got a very special guest and friend, Peter Appleby. Peter's going to try the apps worm, both apps worms, 4 leg and 8 leg. He's going to explain the way he ties it and the small details that make the difference when you're tying this worm. I think we've all tied the apps worm our own ways, but we'll see tonight he's going to do both worms, how to tie it the perfect way. So welcome, Peter.
Welcome, all right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will have questions about the original apps worm. I've jotted a few down. How old is the pattern, Peter, and how did it come about in the first place?
How old is the fly? Well, I would say approaching 30 years. I can prove tonight that it's at least 24 years, but it was 4 or 5 years before what we'll show later on. So I would say approaching 30 years. 30 years tops, 28 to 30 years, something like that.
And whereabouts did you, when you first started fishing, whereabouts were you actually fishing it?
Well, the fly was actually designed through the natural bloodworm, by seeing natural bloodworm on the surface of the water, which gives us the idea to imitate that. Bloodworm, a natural bloodworm, isn't obviously as big as the abscess worm, but it's the real bloodworm is red, blood red. I mean proper blood red. And with it wriggling about, that's what the idea came from. And the first ever abscess worm tied was just elastic band. The little packets of elastic bands you used to buy, all different things.
Right, yeah.
And I'd pick the red one out, cut it in half, and it would spring out as a rubber leg,
Yeah.
And it started with just that tied on the hook, nothing but in the middle. And it, believe it or not, it caught fish. What was the question?
Where did you first sort of try it?
This is a good question, because a lot of people think that the abscess worm is more of a stocky bashing fly. Well, where I'm going to tell you this fish was developed, the fly was developed at, is a wild stream of nothing but, wild brown trout that lived in a stream, nothing but, I would say, 10 foot wide at its most, and no more than 3 foot deep, with an average fish size of 3 to 3.5 pounds.
All brown trout?
All wild brown trout.
Right.
So you cannot ask for a more testing fish to test a new pattern. In other words, these are really well educated wild fish. If these take this pattern, then anything will take them.
Yeah.
And it was actually developed and fished on them sort of fish for a long time before I actually started to use it on rainbow trout.
Right, next question. I mean, Peter, most anglers have tied their own versions of the apps worm, different types of flexi-floss and different colours and what have you. Are you bothered about people sort of changing your original pattern or not?
Not at all. I mean, at the end of the day, anglers like to put their own touches to a lot of flies. I've done it myself, put my own touches to the shipman's buzzer and stuff like that, put my own tying of it, and, But what I can say, I don't think there's nothing that I haven't done. You know what I mean? When you hear, you see where they've added a leg and this and the other.
Experiments, basically.
Believe you me, I've been there, done that. I've done it. I've tied an 8-legged fly with 8 legs, all different colours. So, and they work. They do catch fish, but been there, done it, and I always ended up back at the original.
So you've narrowed it down to basically the top fish catching flies.
I've narrowed it down and perfected it to the fly that hasn't changed for the last, out of say 30 years. how old this fly is, I would say the last 20 years it's been as it is today.
I mean, the apps patterns, there's two main patterns, isn't there? There's the 4-legged one and the 8-legged ones.
Yeah.
The difference is obviously...
Yeah, you can pull both. You can pull the 4-legged one is more to fish like buzzer style type fishing, you know, static and just let it go around with the breeze and let the fly go, sink very, very slow. And the pulling one is the 8-legged one, which is designed to pull, like, you know...
It pulses, doesn't it?
It pulses,
yeah.
But you can catch on, you can catch on the pulling worm figure eighting it, just like you fish the axe worm, and you can catch on pulling the axe worm. But the two different patterns was designed for two different techniques of fishing. One for pulling and one for like nymphing, like buzzer type fishing and so on.
And colours wise, as you said before, you've experimented with every colour that's going, but you've virtually narrowed it down now to 4 main colours, haven't you, really?
Yes, I mean, like you say, I've been there, done it. You know, there's nobody has tied a worm that I haven't tied. I can tell you that, colour-wise. You know, I've tried every colour there is, and believe it or not, they all work, but there's some better than others. You know. And I would say, to have in your box, well, put it this way, myself, I have 4 colours, and I stick with them 4 colours, because if somebody's using a black worm or an orange worm that I haven't got, and you catch fish on that, then you'll catch on the proper colours.
On the colour you've got.
But the difference is, the proper colours will fish when them other ones won't.
So the 4 main colours you have
the
are...
4 main colours of lapse worm is red, amber, olive and pink, and that's it. And it's the same with the pulling worm as well. Red, 8-legged pulling worm, olive, amber and pink. You can tie them black and they will work, but you don't need them. You know, if you can't catch on them colours, they simply not on.
It must have been, just trying to get in my mind here, because obviously years ago when you developed this worm, when you went to competitions, and obviously you were the sort of only one to have this worm. We all know how productive it is now. Can't imagine how it must have been for yourself when you turned up at a fishery where the fish had never seen these things before. It must have been absolutely devastating.
Well, I did and I didn't. I wasn't the only one who had it, because I was in teams, you know, and they were kept secret, you know what I mean? But there's still, you know, the worm is a lethal pattern, as everybody knows, lethal. And it's possibly, I know I've heard it said many a time, that probably one of the best fish catches of a fly that's ever been invented. I'm not saying it's true or not, but it can be that way, you know what I mean? But it's not always the opposite worm, you know, if the fish is hard on buzzers and that, then on buzzers, so it doesn't always work out like that in matches.
Definitely.
There's one thing I will like to say, that it gets my back up a little bit when you hear people coming across it being a stocky bashing fly. Well, I've got some paperwork here where I'd like to show you, right? I just want you to have a look at the headlines of this. North East Region, Dales and Area, Fishery Science Report number D, is it D1700? Brown trout population, is it investigation?
This is the study for that little stream that you started.
This is a study on that little stream, and just have a look at that fish there. That is one of the fish that come out of this stream. That's £7 1 ounce, and that fly is the original Apps' worm, which is 24-year-old. If you look at the date here, the brown trout caught, brown trout is £7 1 ounce, caught by Peter Appleby from Ricknell Grange, 16th of the 7th, 1997. So that makes that fly 24-year-old. Now, if you have a look at it,
it's just a single leg, isn't it?
It's a single leg, right?
Yeah.
And it's not Glow Bright number 5.
Yeah.
Look, I can't remember, you're talking 24-year-old,
Yeah.
I think it's either tinsel or it's a dark.
Oh.
But you can see that is the actual fly that fish took.
Oh.
So if you think that's a stocky bashing fly, it isn't.
Yeah,
If you can get a fish, you know, as educated as that, a wild brown trout,
beautiful fish.
taking them flies,
Yeah.
they will catch
Yeah.
any fish that swims. No ifs or buts. Now back to this report. That's the report, and if I go to skip it all, it's just,
it's
a
just
lot of nonsense. But if we go,
it's just showing you some of the trout, isn't it?
this is the sort of fish that these they did like electric
Survey.
study. If you can flick them pages there.
Yeah, just a few of
And
big
look at
browns.
these, and this is in a stream no wider than 10 foot wide, deepest 3 foot deep.
It actually doesn't get fish, does it? Because it's like on a private estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolute cracking, well educated fish. I mean, I've thrown everything at these fish when I was testing this fly, and they wouldn't take them.
Yeah,
But as soon as I put the Apple's worm in front of them,
yeah.
game, set and match.
Big fish. Yeah.
So if it can catch them sort of fish,
You can catch all
it's not a
But
stocky fly.
you were saying it's not only trout. You've had success. You've had sea trout,
I've
salmon.
Grills, small grilled salmon,
Yeah.
and sea trout, all on the Apple's worm.
And you
on
was
the
the guys in America who do the bass fishing. They've had a lot of success with the bass
apparently
using the
when
the eight-legged worm, haven't they?
yeah, the bass fishers tend to like jigging like rubber worms on
Yeah,
stick spools,
yeah,
but they do
small mouth and large mouth.
yeah, but they do a fly fishing competition for bass, and the best pattern for the bass, I mean bass like rubber legs, you know what I
like
mean,
movement, don't they?
is that as well. So it's
And you were
also-
saying the pink version's particularly deadly for the
apparently,
bass.
yeah, I've heard that the pink is the best for the bass, but they reckon it's the only fly pattern such that's
Yeah.
consistently good for bass. But it's you know, it's a cracking pattern, and it'll catch fish all year round.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there's not a specific time to use
Yeah.
it.
People think it's only works well in the winter, winter months,
Yeah.
but that's far from the truth, isn't it?
Far from the truth.
Yeah.
The fish, that apple worm will literally work every day of the week,
Yeah.
52 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
it doesn't go off.
You
I
must
mean,
be very proud, like when you hear people, you at fisheries and they'll say to their pals, "Oh, I've just getting that one on an olive apps worm," you know what I mean? Because everybody, most people, they'll be very surprised if most trout anglers in the UK haven't got apps worms of some sort in their box.
Yeah, often have a little chuckle to myself fishing away, and you hear people saying, "Oh, put the apps as worm on, or the red apps or the olive apps," and it's brought a lot of success to a lot of anglers,
Yeah.
which is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just my patterns. There's a lot of good flies out there invented by different people. You know, that's what fishing's all about. You know.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's
Good.
absolute crap.
So you're gonna do the honours, and you're gonna tie both the worms, the four-legger and the eight-legger, and you're gonna obviously explain to everybody the little details that makes the difference of the way you tie it and the colours and everything. So we're looking forward to that, and people can see how the videos go. So smashing. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tie the original olive eight-legged fly, and I'm going to tie the original way to tie the Apps' worm. Both originally tied the proper way, and
Yeah.
there's tips and techniques in tying a fly that you've never seen before, which enhances the fly. You know, just little teeny tips, little teeny things that change your pattern.
yeah.
Can make it fish, but like I say, nearly 30 years experience, you know.
Yeah. Well, in fishing, whatever form of fishing you do, it's always the minute things that can make the difference, and obviously, hopefully, people will see how you put the flies together. So brilliant, and much appreciated doing this, Peter, because like you say, it's exclusive. It's never been done before. So brilliant. Thank you. Cheers.
Welcome, Peter Appleby here. This is the first time on video anybody's ever seen me tie the proper Apps worm, and there is a proper Apps worm. But as I tie it, I'll go through why I personally say the fly should be tied this way, and you'll see for yourself the little tips throughout tying this fly, what makes this the proper Apps worm. First of all, we need to go through the materials. Now, I'm not knocking anybody for tying the Apps worm. They all tie their own variants, and that's good. I like to say that. You know, people putting their own touch to the Apps worm. Great. I like to say that. And you hear some people say it doesn't make any difference about the colours, whatever red you use for the body. You know, you hear your Glow Bright number 5, you hear your Glow Bright number 4, you hear just a dull red cotton, whatever. You know, that's their choice. But there is a proper Apps worm, and the proper Apps worm has to be tied with the proper materials. So number 1, Glow Bright number 5 is a must. Not Glow Bright number 4, Glow Bright number 5. And you'll see in the fly, and I'll explain in the fly as we go through it. I'm not just going to tie this fly as an Apps worm like people see an Apps worm tied. I'm going to explain the fly as we go through the tying of the fly. Glow Bright number 5. Blood, ox blood, flexi floss. Now we dye our own colours, but you can buy this in a lot of stores. Ox blood is a popular colour for the Apps worm, and it is the true colour for the Apps worm. So ox blood, flexi floss. I don't use a whip finishing tool, never have done in close to 50 years of tying flies. I just do a half niche, a hitch, and cut everything with a knife. I don't like scissors. They can put tags on, cottons and that I like it to use a knife. Very important. You'll all be wondering, what the hell is this about? A cocktail stick, cut at 1.5 inches high. 1.5 inches high, cocktail stick. And most important of all, I'll come to the fly, super glue. Wilkinson super glue is a decent make, but I've been told they don't make this anymore. Any super glue will do, but super glue can go white. So what I would suggest you do is find a super glue that doesn't go white. You don't put a lot on, you just put a tiny bit on, and do an experiment with the glue on a dummy fly or whatever, just to make sure that it doesn't go white after attaching this. But it's a must, super glue. So that's it. Gone through the materials. I've got a size 10 Hannick hook, so we'll tie it on a size 10. There is 3 hooks sizes to tie the Apps worm. I'm just threading the floss through as we speak. 14, 12 and 10. You don't need to tie it any more than any bigger hook than a size 10, or any smaller than size 14. So here we go. First thing, this will be tied more or less like you've seen it tied many times on YouTube, but there's a lot of differences to this fly, so just stay with us and we'll go through it. First tip, big tip with the flexi floss is, when you hold the flexi floss, I'm hoping everybody can see this, it tends to find its own way how it wants to lie. You can see that oh yeah, you can see like that is wanting to lie down. That's its natural way it wants to lie. But if I roll her in my fingers like that, you'll see it now starting to want to lift up. See how it's wanting to lift up? That's how it wants to be on the hook. Not like that, how it wants to lie down. So what you do is you start the fly the way it's lying down on its side, and you just roll that flexi floss over, roll it over like that till it now wants to sit up naturally. See how it's wanting to sit up naturally? That's the first thing. That will help the legs to stay up. Even though you're going to put a cotton in front of it, it'll still want it to raise up. While you're on with that, touch another piece of flexi floss in. This is going to be your rib. Same as we've just done there. Catch that in. So now you've got 3 bits together. Right? Get all 3 bits and torque them down pretty tight. You just go right down to just on the bend of the fly. I like my back legs just to turn to point down. I don't stop there and let them be straight. I pull them so they just start to turn round the bend. About there. Do you see what I'm doing? I'll just backtrack on that so you can see clearly what I'm doing. A lot of people finish them like that, the legs straight, maybe another 2 turns straight. I don't. I pull them round that bend. I want them legs to point down at the back rather than straight. It kicks the fly better when you're working it. Just that little bit, but see, they're kicking down at the bottom. Back up to the fly, to the head. Right, now another little tip: before you do go right to the head, just put a bump behind their eye there, just a little raised bump, right? And then slowly, no tension at all on these legs. Just all you're doing is hold them in position. Just take that down just to the bump of the fly, and them legs now are kicking up. A little bit more. That's it, perfect. So you've achieved 2 things there. You put a little bump in front of the fly which kicks them up, but the flexi floss itself want to stand up anyway. Right? Back to the fly. Now colour that in. Evenly colour it in, so just speed things up a bit here. Just down to the bottom, and it's a must. Give it 3 or 4 coats. I'm building up now to the level of the head, so it's all going to be the same level right through the fly. Don't worry about the flexi floss being too long. All I'm doing is colouring in, that's all I'm doing. Keeping them even, obviously. And that's about it. Back up. So that's it. So basically set the structure of the fly up. Now some detail of the fly. There's a lot of variations of the Apps' worm. Like I say, I'm not knocking anybody for doing that. They all do their own thing, and it's down to confidence basically. If you've got a fly that you're confident with, good luck and you're good on you. That's it. But this is the proper tying of the fly. But there's one fly I just cannot get my head round. Sorry to say it, but I just cannot get my head round. And that is the brandling. The brandling fly is an Apis worm. Purely and simply an Apis worm. The only difference is the segmentations is closer together. Right, I'm just going to give you a demonstration and explain why that is not the Apis worm. The brandling is a variation of the Apis worm. It's not the proper Apis worm. For an example, we've just spent a lot of time putting the glow bright number 5 colour on that fly for a reason. Now just imagine I do this and basically I'm speeding it up, just touch and turn right the way through that fly, and coloured that whole body in with touch and turns with this flexi floss, right? In other words, take away that colour. I don't need to do the whole shank, I'm just giving you a demonstration. That, believe it or not, that would work, but you're taking the colour away by touch and turns of that, and believe it or not, it would catch fish, right? Well, if I unwind that and do the brandling tying, right, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's the brandling tying. Close together wraps. That would work a lot better because you're now starting to see the colour coming through. But it still wouldn't work as good as the Apis worm, the proper tying. I'll explain this later on. So now, let that go back. Right. Now, I said earlier, there is 3 hooks to tie the Apis worm. Size 10, size 12, size 14. Right. Simplest way to remember this is 3, 4 and 5. If this was a size 14 hook in the vise and that was all built up ready now to rib, you would give it no more than 3 turns. Watch, this is a size 14, right? 1, 2, 3. Right, that would be your 14 tying. Remember, you're going to have your eye on and then the little bit of glow bright behind the eye. That would be it for a size 14 hook. If it was a size 12, right, that's 3, 4. You would have 4. That's your 4 turns for a size 12. Then you would have 5 for the size 10. Right, but you have to judge them spacings out accordingly to the hook. I'm just showing you this as a demonstration, right? You would have to space them out so that them spaces fit the hook, right? So letting it go back to square one, we know this is now a size 10, so I need to put 5 turns in, even spaces to get to that head. If it was a size 12, I would be putting 4 spacings to divide out on the length of the hook to get to the eye, and if it was a size 14, I'd be putting 3 spacings, right? So now we're going to do 5 spacings to cover that. So you want to be judge. I know the distance because I've done that many flies. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See that? Perfect. And then catch that in, couple of turns round that head, catch that in. That's your perfect turns for that size hook. Now that is allowing a lot of colour to come through that fly, a lot of colour. That will fish better than a Brandon because of the colour. There's more colour coming through. You don't need that many turns in the hook. In fact, what you're doing is the more of that colour you take out the fly, the more you're killing it. Right. See what I mean? Right. Whip finish. Don't need it. Just simply once, twice. Every head of a fly is either varnished or super glue. All you need is just a couple of half inch done. I use a knife and it cuts it nice and clean right underneath. No knot sticking out, no tag sticking out. Right, very important. We're now coming to the cocktail stick. This is a template for the fly. I could have cut these off when I first put the legs on and they wouldn't have been getting in the way, but I wanted to give you some demonstrations on the fly. So what you do with this, you stand that dead center of the fly and you lift one leg up. Don't stretch it, just let it lift up like that. Once it's level with the top of that stick, cut that off. Let go of it. Now what that does, that means that every single fly you tie, every single leg on every fly will be exactly the same length. That is massive in the Apps worm because it means that every fly you tie will fish exactly the same because the length of the legs determined how that fly moves in the water. Play about with your length of the legs. You don't have to have them, this one here is set at 1.5 inches. You can have them 2 inches, whatever. But what I'm saying is, once you get a fly that you're really fishing well and you've got a lot of confidence in that fly, make a template so that every time you tie that fly, they'll all be the same. In other words, if I had 100 of these tied and put them in a bag and shook them all up, doesn't matter which fly I bring out the bag, it will be the same. And how many times have you caught fish on a fly and you've lost that fly for some sort of reason, whether you've hit the bank, you've been snapped off in a fish, or it's simply just getting wrecked by the fish's teeth, so you put another fly in it and it doesn't fish the same. And the reason why that is because it's not the same. You might think it's the same, but it's not. It's tied differently, so it works differently in the water, and that's why template your fly. Another good tip, and this is also a must with the Apps worm. You'll see what I've done the same on the 8-legged pulling worm, is use your super glue, but do not use the head of the super glue because it's not accurate enough and you could spill and quite easily catch that flexifloss and ruin the fly. So put a bit of super glue on a bit plastic. I just use an old box, and this is really important. Just stroke that Glow Bright number 5. Varnish will dull Glow Bright number 5. Resin will dull Glow Bright number 5. Super glue will enhance the colour of Glow Bright number 5. In other words, it will not darken. It'll actually dry brighter than what it is. And that is the trick of the Apps bloodworm. The Glow Bright number 5 is the best colour to use. Now, you might think, does that sound like an old man that hasn't got a clue what he's talking about? Well, let me tell you this. I'm telling you this because I know better. I've had 30 years experience, coming on 30 years experience with this fly. And them gaps is the right gaps for that fly to fish at its best. Super glue is the best finishing to make that fly the colour, to keep the colour of that fly. That's it now, all finished super glue. It does two things. It makes that fly indestructible. It does three things. It enhances the colour, it keeps the colour, and the other thing is it doesn't glass finish the body. You know, when you bug bond it or varnish it, you glass finish it so it's all smooth. You want them raised ribs of flexifloss to make it look more like an insect's body. That's natural as an apse worm can look. It's raised, you know, you can feel them as you run the stick down the fly. You can feel all them bumps. That looks perfect naturally, and look at the colour of it, absolute perfect. The other thing is bit super glue on the end of the stick and touch each tip of the flexifloss, just that little touch like that. What that does, it seals the tips and stops them from fraying and makes that fly last 10 times longer than what it would. It does eventually still fray. Sometimes they don't, sometimes it'll last forever, but sometimes, you know, the flexifloss will fray. But you're talking 50-60 fish, if not more, before it happens. Just a little touch of super glue on each tip of every leg will make that fly last basically forever. Let's have a look. Absolutely perfect. Now you might not think that them gaps make a big difference to the fly. Like I say, believe you me, that is the proper and the only way to tie the proper apse worm. Thank you. I hope you've learned something from this video. Get these tied up. Use the tips I've told you and you will see a massive improvement on fishing the apse worm. And it could be your apse worm, might not be mine, because you might play about with them legs and end up with a better length of leg than I've got, but you will have the template for that, so you'll know exactly how to keep that fly, tying it exactly the same. Thank you. Catch you later. Bye. Right lads, how are you doing? Peter Appleby. I'm here now to show you how to tie the proper way of the 8-legged olive apse worm. Now a lot of people put the beads is already set up on the hook. I've just fast forwarded so to save time, but a lot of people put the beads on the flexifloss. The problem is with that, it can be a nightmare to turn them around the hook and you can damage the flexifloss. So I'm going to show you the proper way how to put a fly together, and there is little finishing touches that nobody's ever seen before. So this is how the proper way how to tie the olive apse worm pulling worm. You put 5 Gutterman 9/0 beads on the hook. Then you get some braid. This is 10-pound braid and it's pretty stiff braid, and you just put it all together like that and you basically run that through the center of the beads right the way through till it comes out the end. Simple as that. Then you get your green flexifloss, And this saves damaging the flexifloss in such an easy way and proper way to do it. And bear in mind, I've had 30 years experience doing this fly. You just put that through there and simply pull that through there. Simple as that. Take that off. How much easier is that? Never been seen before. No damage to the flexifloss at all. Straight through the fly. Pull that to roughly the size you want. That'll do for now. Cut the surplus off at the back and then we'll get on tying. Materials you need to do this fly. Obviously the 5 Gutterman seed beads, your green or olive flexifloss, you want Glow Bright number 5 floss, a cocktail stick. This is a template. This is to make every fly exactly the same. A must. Cut to 1.5 inches. Some super glue. That's a good make. Wilkinson's super glue. That's a good make. And I use a cutting knife better than scissors for a cleaner cut, because I don't use whip finishes. I've been tying flies for close on 50 years and I'd never used a whip finish in my life. I don't think you need it, because every head of a fly either gets super glue or varnish, so I just half each. You don't, but I find a cutting tool is better than scissors. So here we go. That's the flexifloss now attached to the hook. The next job is to add your butt. I'm slowing right down so I can show you exactly what I mean. Now, them beads are pretty tight, so you need to just ease them apart. You've got to have some sort of little gap so that when you put the leg in the middle, it's got somewhere to go. So now put the butt in first. Start at the back and just a couple of turns. You don't need a big butt. Now, a good little tip is don't cut the cotton when it's sticking out. Always fold it back over towards the front and then a couple of turns over the top like that. So now the cotton now is against the beads. That avoids a little tag being there when you cut it off. If I'd cut off the back, that tag could be at the back and could spoil the fly. Just a simple little butt there now. And it's as simple as that. That's all you want. Now all I do now is there, a bit more there, and twice round. Once, twice. That's all you need. Finger on the top, pull that shut. Simple as that. Don't need no fancy whipping because it's going to get super glue. Cut off with a knife. I will have to use the scissors there because it doesn't cut properly with them. That's it. Right. Now, another bit of flexifloss, roughly about 2.5 inches each side, roughly. Cut that in half. Roughly make a loop. Basically find the center. I go 2 beads down, so it's over the top. I'll just get my hands out the way once I've cut these through, and that will allow them beads to slide in, because that tag isn't tight. So it's like that, then let go. Right? Now this is really important to the fly. What happens is, how many times this has happened, there will be hundreds if not thousands of anglers know exactly what I'm talking about. You have a fly, you put it on, you're fishing away with it, and for some reason you lose that fly. Whether you hit the bank, you get snapped off on a take, or it simply gets destroyed by a fish. So then you have to put another fly of the same, what you think is the same, on. The trouble is, how many times has this happened where you put the same fly on and you don't get a touch? The reason for that is it's because it's not the same. You might think it's the same, but it's not. Every fly I tie, I template them, so that if I lose a fly, when I put another one on, it will be exactly the same. This is where your cocktail stick comes in. 1.5 inches in length. You only have to do it with one strand. Stand that cocktail stick on top of the fly. Lift one piece of flexifloss up, but do not stretch it. Do not stretch it. Once it's on the top of the stick, cut it off. Release it. That's your template, right? And do this on every fly. Then you bring all the legs up to the top, just like a hairdresser cuts hair. She uses her fingers to put your hair through your hair and cuts all your hair at the same length. That's how your hair ends up proper. Cut them off all at that template. When you let go of that fly, that's your template. Every fly will be identical the same every time. The only thing to do now is add a little touch of super glue to the fly, to the butt, and more important, to these legs underneath, just to kick them up a little bit. Right, I don't use cotton, I use super glue. So just a little dot of super glue. Don't put it on the fly with the super glue, because it's not accurate enough. You could touch the flexifloss legs, so just a little dot of super glue. Get a cocktail stick, fine cocktail stick, and just go around that butt. You can trim them so it's frayed a bit with that knife. It wasn't sharp enough, as sharp as I thought. Just go underneath like that. And the same with them legs. Pull them legs back, but don't try not to touch the flexifloss, and just put a dot underneath the legs like that. Just hold it like that, just for a couple of seconds, and they'll sit up like that. And when that goes off, they will stay in that position all the time. One more little dot, dead center of the fly, over the super glue, over the knot that you've attached them middle legs to. Right, and then the final thing, nobody's ever seen this before, and it's a must. You don't have to do it, but it makes the fly last 10 times longer. Everybody knows when they're fishing this fly, them ends can fray with the teeth. You know, the amount of the activity they get with casting and the fish grabbing them can fray these ends. So again, super glue, and this is it might look painstaking, but it's not. I'll just do a couple of tips just so you can see. I don't need to do all 8. Just put a dot of super glue on each tip of that flexifloss. Same with the Appleby worm as well. Just that on all 8, right the way around. I'll do all 8. Doesn't take long. And what that does, that seals the tips of them flexiflosses to this, but make sure they don't touch each other while you're doing this, just until they dry, which only takes seconds. got to excuse the shaking of the hands, but when you get to my age, 62-year-old, you'll all suffer the same. Just old age, I'm afraid. Just that little teeny touch will seal them tips, which will make that fly indestructible. Simple as that. That is the easiest way and most effective way to tie the Apps' worm. You're not causing any damage to the flexi-floss by putting it on the hook. Just put your braid through the beads and pull it through in a one go. Play about with the length of the legs. I think there's more movement in the fly 1.5 inches right round as there is 2 inches. The longer the legs, the less the movement, but you can go too short as well. That's that's a good template to make the fly work at its best. So there we are, lads. I hope it's helpful to you, and have some fun with it. Thank you.